cats and kittens, Sam Osborne. I'm back and today we're talking tyres. To start with, we'll go with pressure. Now if I got $1 for every time I got asked this question, I'd be retiring well before I was 65. The most common mistake is people are always running too high a pressure. My go-to pressure for my racing is 20 psi. From there I add a little bit more or a little bit less depending on the course. The whole idea of higher pressure improving the rolling resistance of the tyre, in my opinion, is complete rubbish. You're giving away far too much in traction. Our ability to corner is essentially not there, and we've had people who are much more qualified than you and me do studies on these kinds of things, and we've seen a trend with road cyclists and the mountain bikers dropping these pressures. Now the reason why we run a really low pressure, I've got this set at 18 psi, which is what I've been trying out here and at home here in Rotorua, is when we corner and we get stuck into it, we want the edge of that tyre to compress in. As you can see there, it's actually pretty soft. These side knobs on the tyre, if we're running it too hard, are really just there for decoration. If we're running this low pressure, as soon as we get that tyre over, these side knobs will compress and we'll be able to get our bike really far over before we lose traction. Along with that, having a little bit of give in the top of the tyre, when we're rolling over rocks, roots, all of that sort of thing, the tyre will kind of mould over those and give you a little bit more. So as long as we're running a really low pressure, or the right pressure, in this case, baseline of 20 psi, that tyre will compress, and as long as we're hitting that root on the right angle, very rarely will it slip. Now obviously, different weight riders will have a different baseline pressure to work on. For somebody like Samantha, believe it or not, I run her pressures on the circuit. I usually take 2 psi off whatever I'm running for that race. If you are somebody who's running north of 25 psi, I do highly recommend that you revisit what you're looking with your pressures. Now, secondly, tyre choice. This is obviously another little one of those personal decisions, but every time I go to a race, I've got 3 different tyres that I've packed in my bag. A really fast rolling tyre, my safe option if I'm really unsure what I should be riding, this is my go-to. And then something when things really go south, a really nasty mud tyre. Now my go-to fast rolling tyre that I always try and race if I can is a Schwalbe Thunderbird. It doesn't have a lot of tread going on here through the middle, but it does have a really good edge on it. Rolling resistance is super low, but I know I've got something to lean on when I hit the corners. My safe option, whenever I turn up at a race and I'm not sure what I'm going to run, or if I'm in two minds, I'll always go for the Ray Ralph combo. It's got a little bit more meat in the centre, but it's still got a really good edge on the tyre. I know it rolls fast, but it'll give me enough traction that I know it's a really predictable, safe tyre for me. Now if things really go south, not very often I'll ever put something like this on. This is a mud tyre. With a mud tyre, you want as big a spacing between the tread pattern as possible. The bigger the spacing, the better the mud will clear. Also, which is the trend going opposite to what we're seeing at the moment, you want as narrow as possible tyre. I run these in a 1.9. If I could find them any smaller, I'd 100% go for them. Now if you ever do get caught at a race, didn't think it was going to turn into an absolute debacle, your emergency mud tyre option, have done it a couple of times, thankfully not very often, is to just cut off every second knob on your tread pattern. That'll give a little bit more spacing and a little bit more clearance for the mud to get out of your frame. Now the other really common question I get asked is what width tyre should I run? The trend of late has been to go wider, so we're looking at wider internal widths of the rims, gives us a squarer profile on the tyre, and I've been trialling out some 235s on my bike, so wider again on the tyre. Now the thought of this is that the width of the tyre doesn't slow you down in terms of how fast the tyre will be rolling, but it's more about the tread pattern that you have on the tyre. So 235 is in fact no slower or faster than a 225, but it will give you much more traction. So it'd be better to run a wider tyre with less tread and a narrower tyre with a little bit more tread.